it is Jo from Minerva, and today I'm here for a little bit of sewing chit chat. So I'd like to chat with you about how to use patterns if you have a woven pattern and you have a stretch fabric, or if you have a stretch pattern and you want to use a woven fabric. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it's possible to do, but there are some considerations. Today's video comes in two parts. So the first half of this video will be how to get your woven pattern to stretch fabric, and the second half of the video vice versa. I'm wearing a top from McCall's 7322, which is an unusual pattern because this pattern has options for stretch and woven fabrics in the same pattern pieces. You might wonder how this would work. Well, actually, these size ranges aren't specific, so they're grouped. So there's small, medium, large, extra large, etc. And you have to measure yourself and put yourself into one of those brackets. And so the key to changing from wovens to stretch fabrics is how much ease has the pattern got. This pattern's got quite a lot of ease, so I cut a medium. I normally cut a size 12 or 14 for myself, and I would say it does that a little bit, because in this version I've made it in a woven fabric. In a stretch fabric it might happen even more. So on the next top that I made from this pattern, I went down to a size small and it was a great fit. So thinking about using stretch or wovens, this is a great place to start. If your pattern isn't multi-size like this one, then the sort of general rule is if you've got a woven pattern and you want to take it to a stretch, it's fine. It's normally easy to do. You might have to size down a little bit because in a woven pattern there is less ease, and in a stretch pattern you'll have more ease, and it might be a little bit bigger where the fabric stretches. So if you've got a woven pattern and you really want to make it in a stretch fabric, make up a toile in a stretch fabric that's similar, a cheaper version, and see if you can do that. There are a few things that you need to look out for. One, if you're taking it from a woven to a stretch fabrics don't normally have a facing. So you can see on a woven pattern, you have a facing that finishes our neck edge. If you have a stretch pattern, your neck edge is normally finished with a binding. So you could switch out the facings from the woven pattern for a binding on a stretch pattern. You can put a facing in stretch, but sometimes it's quite difficult to get it flat, and sometimes it's a little bit lumpy, and also it sort of wants to flip forward. So if you do have a stretch facing, which is on the McCall's pattern, then there is a stitch detail that stitches it down. The other thing that's slightly tricky with using a stretch fabric for a woven pattern is that if a woven pattern has a zip in it, you can't always necessarily just take the zip from there and use it in a stretch fabric. Stretch fabrics don't really like having a zip put in them. Maybe you'll get one in a Ponte Roma, a thick jersey, but you probably find from your toile that you don't need the zip because you'll have enough ease to get it over your head and your shoulders. So there are the two things to check out. If you're changing something from woven to stretch, check the sizing, the facings, and any zip closures. Okay, so if you want to go the other way, so you have a stretch pattern and you want to use a woven fabric, that is slightly trickier. Of course, if you've got a stretch pattern, it will have maybe negative ease. So negative ease is when the pattern pieces are smaller than your body shape and the stretch of the fabric allows it to be super fitted. So you won't be able to do that in woven unless you put some kind of closure in, because you won't be able to get it on and get that sort of smoothness. You can't get negative ease in woven fabric. You won't be able to move. So you wouldn't be able to use a stretch pattern that has negative ease and use it for a woven fabric. Woven patterns that you could change to stretch are the Grainline Studio Scout Tee. I have done this before, so I have made it in a stretch fabric and it was fine. It's much more looser fitting and a little bit more drapey, and I finished the neckline with a binding because that is finished with a binding anyway. I've also obviously tried the McCall's pattern, so that means I can switch between stretch and woven. I haven't tried it myself, but this new look pattern for a shell top with, it's got facings actually, but you can bind the neck and bind the arms, made in a stretch fabric. This is a woven pattern, and here's an example of someone from our Minerva feed who have tried the top in a Ponte Roma, and you can see it makes a really nice matching set for the loungewear pants. The best thing to do if you want to change a woven pattern into a stretch fabric is to toile first. I've got a classic example, a slightly mistake example to show you of where I have a stretch pattern and I wanted to change it to a woven fabric. My daughter was choosing a prom dress. She's 15. It's quite hard to get her to choose what she wants. She doesn't know what style she would like. So I asked her to go on Minerva's website and choose all the different dresses that she liked and put the patterns in the saves. She did, and she chose this pattern. It's a butterick pattern. It has a crossover front, but she liked the pink view where it was just a sleeveless dress, a gathered waistband and a full length skirt. I said yes, it looked absolutely fine to me, and she chose some viscose satin. It wasn't until the pattern arrived and I turned it over and thought, oh, I haven't got a zip, how long do I need to get a zip? I realised there's no zip in the notions, and that alerted me to the fact that it is a stretch fabrics only pattern. And when I read it, that's what it said on the back. So I should have really read the details on the back of the packet a little more carefully. But at this point, we'd bought the fabric, she'd chosen the design, and I didn't want to make her go through all of that again because she wasn't totally sure about what she was choosing. So I've made some alterations to this pattern to use a stretch pattern with woven fabric. So here's the dress, and we managed to make it and it looks superb. And these are the changes that we made. So I'm going to show you each one, and they're all things to consider if you've got a pattern and you need to change it to a woven fabric. So the first thing we did was we thought, how are we going to get it on and off? So we made this back slit, and we made it quite long because that looked fine on evening wear, and that enabled Heidi to get it on and off. And then after thinking we were going to do that, we thought, how are we going to finish the edge of that back slit, the edge of the neck and the edge of all of the armholes? And so we cut the fabric pieces out twice, and we sewed the neck and we sewed the armholes and we turned it out. So we didn't need a binding, we didn't need facings, it's all completely enclosed. We made a toile of this first to make sure that she could get it over her head and get it past her shoulders. And we also found out that because she was wearing it as an evening dress, we could lower this front a little bit. So we took a scoop out of the neckline, and that meant that gave her a little bit more space to get it on, and it didn't affect the dress adversely. It actually meant she could wear a really nice necklace with it. The butterick pattern has an elasticated waist, so we were really, really lucky with that. But if there was a fitted waist there, we would have had to have used a stretch fabric, because how would we have got it over her waist and hips? So you can see it's got an elasticated waist. So when you change something from stretch to woven, you need to think, how am I going to get it on? How am I going to finish the edges? And how am I going to get it past my hips or tummy? We managed to make it work, and we got a really nice evening dress. If some of those design features aren't your kind of thing, then you could put in a woven dress a zip. So you could take from a stretch pattern that's got a little bit of ease, you could try a zip, so you could do that on your toile. You could try a keyhole opening. You could have tried little covered buttons with loops down the back. You could have tied little bows across the back, little ties. So there was lots of different options to go for. They're all ways that you can change the back of your stretch knit garment so that you can get it on. In terms of this, we managed to get away with it, but if you like that pattern, Butterick 6051, then the best fabric for that is a viscose jersey. The Minerva new ones would be absolutely fabulous, but you need something with some drape and stretch. And that would mean that you bound the neck, you bound the armholes, and you still made the waistband the same, but it's not totally clear from the picture that it's a stretch fabric pattern. It doesn't look like one, but you also need to make sure that you read the back of the pattern instructions on our website before you choose your pattern. If your stretch pattern has sleeves, then I really recommend that you use short sleeves, because if you have a stretch fabric, then that stretch would mean that you can bend your elbow. If you suddenly put that in a woven fabric, you won't have enough ease here to be able to move your arm. So you might have to adapt your stretch pattern to short sleeves so that you can use woven. In terms of trousers, I wouldn't even go there. It's really not worth it. If you've got a stretch pattern and you need stretch fabrics, that's because you need to stand up, sit down, walk, run, bend over, and have the comfort of stretch and ease in your trousers. So if you've got a stretch trouser pattern, you definitely need to buy a stretch fabric. I hope that's helped you today. We all make mistakes and we manage to claw our way out of ours. But make sure that if you're working with a woven pattern, you get woven fabric. And if you're working with a stretch pattern, you get stretch fabric. We would love to see anything that you have made. So do make an account with us and join our Minerva sewing community. Upload your makes, give a little description, take some photographs. We love to see everything that is going on. Thank you very much for watching. Do call again soon.